Yo, what's going on, guys? Johnny GB here, bringing you guys a draft analysis. Now, with the PMC ending here very shortly, I think there's maybe like 2 weeks left of the PMC. Um, I decided that, you know what? I would not mind joining another league, a third league for a couple weeks. I mean, we have the ICBA, we're about mid-season there. But this is a showdown-based league, so it goes a little bit quicker than trying to play a Wi-Fi league. I can play while studying for a class on my lunch breaks at school, so it's a little bit easier to work around playing a showdown league than a Wi-Fi league. And the league we decided to join was the NPAA Minor League, or the MPA, or the NPAAA. For those that are wondering where the NPAAA comes from, basing it off baseball, what they do, they have their divisions separated by the number of A's. You have the AAA, AA, single A. So the AAA is that step right below the minors, or right below the majors. And I'm very interested. I mean, the lineup they have for this minor league is very, very impressive. Some coaches that are in this, you have players like Potato Jim, Tone from the NPL, you have Trev. So there's a lot of coaches here that are very solid coaches. You also have Sleeping Knight 77, aka Kyle from the P4G. You have Hera from the MPL. So there's a lot of players here that, you know what, I never really get a chance to play a lot, so this is a perfect time to finally get a play against them. And I felt like I wanted that urge to draft again. I mean, everybody just loves that feeling of just drafting a team. And it's a 24 coach league, so when I got the idea of what to plan around with 24 coaches, I know that I have to grab Mons with very little switch-ins because not everybody's going to have a switch-in for that Pokemon. And I felt like that was my best option. I know I needed to get removal early because removal will go quickly, seeing as it's 24 coaches. Now, I know it was going to be hard to get cores going. I mean, you're not always going to get what you wanted. And the front office provided a lot of help for me, honestly, regarding stuff that got sniped, because I did get sniped a couple times, mostly on the latter half of the draft, on a couple picks. Just say right now, I was really looking at Garbodor, Alolan Persian, Vikavolt as kind of like my last three pick core, and once Alolan Persian Vikavolt went, I really just switched out Garbodor for something else. I was really looking forward to using Alolan Persian and Vikavolt in a league. Parting Shot and Slow Volt Switch actually work out so good with my team that you guys are about to see. And just one last shout out here. We also have Deebs, who did make the graphics for this, so everybody give a big shout out to Deebs for the great graphics here that we're going to be using. We used it for the PMC along with the ICBA draft recaps. But we're going to kick it off with our first pick of the draft. Well, not first pick, but our first mon in the recap. We have Mega Medicham. Now, this was actually my second pick of the draft, and it's a Pokemon I love using. I used it for a little bit in another league. And it's just a mon that has very few switch-ins. I mean, switch-ins are bulky psychics, ghost types, so I know I needed, if I drafted Mega Medicham, I'm going to need a Pursuit Trapper or a nice dark type later on in the draft. But with pure power, very good coverage, Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, powerful stabs and high jump kick and drain punch, priority and fake out and bullet punch, it fits the role that I need of making sure my opponent doesn't have many switch-ins to it, and I do have some things to cover what Mega Medicham actually deals with. And actually, a very good pair, honestly. Just looking at it, the base 100 speed, not great. It's average. I would really like to have gotten Mega Gallade, but Mega Gallade actually went towards the end of the first round. I was fifth pick, so I mean, there's a very slim chance I was going to get my first two picks I actually really wanted to try Mega Gallade. That base 110 speed, I think, is just so important right now. Being able to outspeed those base 100s for sure, and pretty much everything below it, guaranteed. But you know what, Mega Medicham, it fell to me. I'm like, alright, let's take it. It was probably my third or fourth Mega that I actually had planned. Diancie, Mega Diancie, Mega Gardevoir, and Mega Gallade were the top three I was looking at. So fortunately, I mean, we were able to get Mega Medicham, which, I mean, it's not a bad Mega by any means. I mean, pure power with a base 100 attack stat, very powerful Pokemon. So I needed something to pair with my actual first pick that struggles with a lot of bulky steals, and that first pick that we had in the draft was Kyurem Black. Now, we took Kyurem Black with the 5th overall, and I've used Kyurem Black in the PBA, I've used Kyurem Black, actually 2 seasons of PBA I've actually used Kyurem Black, so it's a mon I feel comfortable using, and it pairs really well with Mega Medicham. Kyurem Black doesn't do very well against bulkier steals that resist ice, so I needed Mega Medicham as that sort of steel wall breaker, be able to just break steals. Kyurem Black with a attack stat of 170, very powerful physical sweeper, can run Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Life Orb, can be a very good Z-move user. I'll explain the Z-move rule at the end of the draft. And it's also actually very bulky. I mean, 125, 100, 90 bulk is very good bulk. It can take some hits. Now, thing that Kyurem Black doesn't like, fairy types. I mean, it does get Iron Head, you can run Steelium Z, etc., but it doesn't like fairy types that much. Fairy types are a very good check to Kyurem. Offensive fairy types, anyway, if I'm lacking the steel coverage. And right now, I mean, my draft is a little weak to fairy, which is a little bit of a concern right now. Drafting 2 mons right away, weak to fairy, but I mean, Steelium Z potentially could check fairies such as Clefable and Florges. So it's a very good mon. Dragon Ice, very good offensive typing. Again, it just pairs really good with the Medicham, and it just goes well with my strategy of draft the stuff that have very few switch-ins. Some of the top switch-ins that you can think of for a Kyurem Black, you have stuff like Klefki, you have Bronzong, Clefable to an extent, depending if the Kyurems are running Iron Head. So there's very few solid switch-ins to Kyurem, and most of the switch-ins I can deal with, or potentially even draft, just to help my cause of really setting it up to where my beaters can just go in and damage things for actually my next pick. Medicham and Kyurem Black actually weaken the stuff so that I can potentially clean up with a Terrakion. Come right around the 7th round, I was looking for a mon that can go in, clean up, and sweep games. Kyurem Black, Mega Medicham, very good wall breakers, very good damage mons to weaken all of my opponent's team, and Terrakion is that good setup sweeper. It gets access to Rock Polish, Swords Dance, very good Choice Band user, very good Choice Scarf user, also another very good Expert Belt user, 2 very powerful stab attacks in close combat, and Stone Edge, access to priority in quick attack. So Terrakion can do a lot. It's also a very good Z mover. Rockium Z or Fightium Z Terrakion have very minimal switch-ins, especially if it sets up a Swords Dance. Now, base 108, it is our fastest mon, so I'm very happy with speed tiers as of right now. But with Kyurem and Mega Medicham, they're not essentially a late-game cleaner. Terrakion is that late-game cleaner for this team, and it actually fits in perfectly. Now, I know I'm really weak to Fairy right now. I don't have a very good fighting switch-in being Mega Medicham, but again, it's going with that strategy. I want to draft the stuff that damages my opponent's team, and then I needed that one Pokemon to go in and just clean up everything that's already weakened, and Terrakion can do that very efficiently with 2 different forms of setup, depending on what the situation may be. If I get rid of Choice Scarfers, then I can just clean up with Swords Dance Terrakion, or if I need to set up a Rock Polish and a Swords Dance, there's the Dual Dance Terrakion that can just go through and clean up the rest of my opponent's team. Now, I have the offense all set up. I need support now. I need hazard removal. I need Hazard setup. I need a lot of support for this team, and one of the best support mons, Klefki. And I felt like Klefki is actually a very good support mon with Kyurem Black, Mega Medicham, and Terrakion. One, spikes. Kyurem, Mega Medi, and Terrakion love having the opponent's side weakened. It just makes them easier for them to break walls. Spikes does that very efficiently. Also gets some just very good tech moves such as foul play for physical attackers. You also have stuff like Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave helps out because my team's not overly fast right now. So being able to slow down my opponent's team with Thunder Wave just ensures that a lot of stuff like Mega Medicham, Kyurem Black will just naturally outspeed instead of having to worry about Choice Scarfers. You also have some other useful utilities such as Light Screen and Reflect. Screens, if Mega Medicham and Kyurem Black or Terrakion are behind screens, they're able to take hits a little bit better than they normally would, and then they'll be able to dish back the same amount of damage. So that's a very good thing to have with some very nice, powerful offensive mons. And I was thinking Alolan Ninetales, but Alolan Ninetales was actually tier 2. It was a little too expensive for what I wanted. It would have been nice with the speed, the over base 100 speed, but it just really didn't fit in, especially with it being a tier 2. I needed a good steel. I needed a decent steel type, decent fairy type, and Klefki does give me that. It also negates one of the Kyurem Black switch-ins that people can draft. So now I have one of maybe 5 or 6 Kyurem Black solutions that 23 other coaches have to go around. But it's a mon that I've paired with Kyurem Black a lot, done it in the PBA. It's just a mon that I feel really comfortable using, honestly. It's just a very basic mon. It also has some very niche sets such as Calm Mind, Priority Calm Mind, Priority T-Wave, Priority Screens, all very useful techs for something that fits my team very well. Now, I needed removal. I have Kyurem Black weak to hazards, but still I don't want to be weak to hazards. It's something that a lot of my drafts do have, and this was the first real draft that I corrected that issue of having no decent removal. So I managed to take Blastoise. It's a decent bulky water type. Main issue with Blastoise is it gets worn down very quickly, switching in on hazards, toxic spikes, switching into attacks. So that's one main issue with Blastoise, is it does get worn down decently quickly, but it is a decent rapid spinner. Gets stuff like Toxic, Refresh. Its move pool is actually pretty decent with Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, Aura Sphere, Scald, so it does have some offensive coverage to help it, but its offensive stats are not blowing your mind with base 85 special attack. But it's mostly in there for that defensive, bulky water role, and it just happens to have hazard removal that comes with it. Now, I'll go into detail about Blastoise here later when it comes to Z moves. I feel like there is a good explanation of potential Z move Blastoise here. And to continue along with the hazard removal role and building a second core, I ended up drafting Decidueye. Now, Decidueye was, I believe, my third or fourth round pick, and I needed to get a bulky grass, or just a decent grass, plus hazard removal, and Decidueye fits both of those, and also helps out Mega Medicham with the Ghost type issue, or the Psychic type issue, because Decidueye does get a good move in Spirit Shackle, which is able to trap opposing Psychic and Ghost types. Also gets access to 2 forms of reliable recovery, Roost and Synthesis. Can be run physical, special. Does get access to Nasty Plot and Sword Stance, so there is some good utility in setting up with this. Unfortunately, the Baton Pass is a dry pass. I cannot pass stats, so it does affect Decidueye in some sort of aspect in terms of passing stats, but it can still set up on its own. It has a nice, decent special bulk of base 100, special defense. Can be a reliable Choice Scarf user. Does get access to U-Turn, other moves like Leaf Blade, Brave Bird. So Decidueye is actually a very interesting Pokemon. I have used it before in a league, and it's actually quite enjoyable to use. You just have to find the right sets for it and the right matchups for it to be very effective. But being able to get Defog, Haze, U-Turn, just makes it a good utility Pokemon that fits the role of my team very well. Now, I need a Fire type to complete the core. I needed a Dark type really to help deal with Mega Metacham's bulky Psychic Ghost type issue. And Alolan Persian was unfortunately taken. So, no Alolan Persian, no Spiritomb, no Skuntank, so no real good Pursuit Trappers, which led me to actually end up drafting Incineroar. Now, I've always been very critical of Incineroar being a not so great Pokemon. I mean, stat-wise, it's decent. I was actually a little surprised when I saw its bulk. I mean, 95, 90, 90 is decent bulk. It doesn't have Intimidate yet, but I mean, it's still decent bulk. With Assault Vest, you can still switch into Psychic types and Pursuit Trap them. Does get access to Nasty Plot, so it can be run special. Gets also access to stuff like U-Turn, its special move Darkest Lariat. So it has a lot of actually interesting moves that it can run. So I'm actually excited to use it, even though I've been very critical of this mon in terms of its competitive usage compared to Decidueye and Primarina, both which I like much better, Primarina being my favorite competitive usage one. But Incineroar is actually going to fit the team decently well. I didn't have a Fire type. I needed a Dark type to help deal with the Psychic type issue, and it pretty much does both the roles that I really need it to do. Getting access to U-Turn is actually a plus, allowing me to just U-Turn freely into some of my potential other threats, into some hazard setup. So I'm actually going to be excited to use Incineroar this season of the NPAAA. Alright, so now we get into some of the interesting picks. This was actually my second to last pick in the draft now. I needed another tier 4 with the free points that I had, and Vikavolt was gone. Yanmega was there, but I was really unsure if I really wanted to use those two. Well, I really wanted to use Vikavolt just for that Electric type plus Volt Switch, but that ended up actually being sniped by Potato Jim, so I really had to think about what I wanted in Tier 4. Excelgor was there, so I could have got more spike stacking to take some pressure off Klefki. It gets U-Turn as well. Then I'm like, then a couple of people in the front office said, why not try Masquerain? And you know what? I decided, you know what, let's give it a try. It gets Intimidate. It's a ground immunity, which I don't really have many of. I have Decidueye as a resist. You have Klefki with Magnet Rise. Blastoise can take an Earthquake, but can't really recover any damage back. So it's a good ground immunity. Gets Intimidate. Gets Sticky Web, which now gives me 2 out of the 4 hazard setups. And looking at my team's not fast. Terrakion so far is the fastest Pokemon at base 108. So my team would like my opponent's team slowed. Mega Metacham and Kyurem Black love when Pokemon come in that are slower than it. It wanted to allow me to run some bulk onto my Pokemon, knowing that, hey, I can outspeed these Pokemon at +1, or at -1, so let's add a little bit of bulk to these Pokemon. Incineroar, Decidueye, I like it in terms of an aspect as they can U-turn onto Pokemon that can switch in, knowing that they can outspeed, and they can hit decently hard. Terrakion will force more switches if my opponent's team slow down. So the Sticky Webs are actually very beneficial to my team that's not so fast. So Masquerain's actually going to be an interesting pick for me. I've never really used a Masquerain. I know it does get access to stuff like Haze, Quiver Dance, U-Turn. So there's some stuff that Masquerain can do that I got to experiment with, see what it can do. But I'm actually very excited to use a Masquerain. It's not a Pokemon that you see drafted fairly often. So in 24-man, you're going to see Mons that are not normally taken in normal draft leagues that are 12 to 16 players. And now we drafted Masquerade. Now I needed Rock Setter. I don't have rocks yet. And this was actually like my 5th round pick. I ended up taking Miltank. Now I've used Miltank quite a bit in the leagues. And I'm actually very excited to have it again this time because it gives me a fire resist, gives me ice resist, gives me a grass immunity, gives me a way to hit ghosts with normal or fighting type moves, gives me a heal beller, gives me a stealth rocker, thunder wave, a curse sweeper. There's a lot Miltank can do. Has very good coverage, gets the elemental punches, body slam, iron head, so it's offensive coverage, good. Defensively, I mean, base 105 defense with 95 HP is not bad. Has base 100 speed, so it's actually not that bad. Gives me 3 mons at base 100 or higher. Medicham, Terrakion, Miltank, so it's not bad. Having that heal beller is good, just in case Medicham gets paralyzed or burned. Terrakion, same thing. Kyurem, same thing. So having the heal beller, very good on a team that has a lot of physical attackers with it. So Miltank, again, it's something that I've used before. I know how comfortable I am using it, and I feel like it just fits well on the team. And it's a mon that a lot of people were trying to go after. And the thing with the 24-man is you have to figure out the right time to take certain mons. Usually if I start seeing tier 3s taken, I gotta grab this Miltank because it's gonna, by the time I get to my next pick, it might be gone, especially if I already picked in round 4. I know I'm not gonna get a pick to almost the end of round 5. So at that end of round 5, I gotta grab that because I know it's gonna be sought after once tier 4 start going or some of the later tier 3 start going. And now I needed another ground resist. Now Miltank can take earthquakes decently, just not great, but I need another ground immunity. And you know what? Weezing's actually a very decent one, and it pairs pretty decently with Incineroar in the aspect of Incineroar's weak to ground. I'm able to switch into my Weezing now. This does not mean I'm safe against Excadrill. Excadrill still does a lot versus my team. Especially in sand. So that's something I'm going to have to look out for. Because Moldbreaker does not care about Weezing levitating at all. But base 120 defense gives me another nice physically defensive mon. This also does give me Toxic Spikes. So now I have all 4 forms of hazard set up. So there could be games where I may want to set up all hazards on my opponent's side of the field, especially if I see that their removal's not so great. Or if they don't have any removal at all. Because if they don't have any removal, I'm bringing 4 forms of hazards, setting them up, and essentially just forcing Kyurem Black, Medicham, or Terrakion to make them switch out. Now they're taking Stealth Rock, Spike, they're taking poison damage, so they're getting slowed by Sticky Web. So the Toxic Spike's very important from Weezing. I get a nice physically defensive fighting resist. I get a nice Will-O-Wisp user, gets Pain Split, Memento, so there's a lot Weezing can do for the team outside of just set up Toxic Spikes, which is very important. I mean, you don't want to draft a mon just for one certain thing. Blastoise, I need a bulky water, it just happens to have Rapid Spin. Decidueye, I need a solid grass type and a ground resist. It just happens to have Defog, stuff like that, so yeah, I mean, Weezing, it's one of those ones that it's good or bad depending on the matchup, since a lot of the times it's going to basically be running 1 or 2 sets. I mean, it does have some stuff like Haze and Memento that could potentially help it out or help the team out, especially stuff like Memento, lowering attack stats, and then going into something like the Medicham or the Kyurem to deal with that. So Weezing's there really as a nice defensive utility mon to help out weaken my opponent's team for Medicham and Kyurem Black. And then finally, the last pick of the draft, I needed a ground type. I needed another Stealth Rocker. So why not draft Piloswine? It's one of the better tier 5s out there. And I've actually never used Piloswine or Mamoswine. So one, I get a nice bulky base 100 mon. And it comes with good priority in Ice Shard. Able to click Earthquake fairly easily. And it can take hits very well because most of the time it's going to be locked into an Eviolite, raising its defensive stats, so that base 80 defense becomes a little bit higher, the base 60 special defense becomes a little bit higher. Gets two very good abilities, Oblivious and Thick Fat. Oblivious prevents it from taunt, Thick Fat becoming essentially an ice resist and neutral to fire. So two very good abilities that come with Piloswine. It's a very good stealth rocker, very good defensive mon, and it just fits the nature of the team very good. Now, things I do see on the team that are a little bit of an issue, I am weak to fighting. I'm actually very weak to fighting, so I'm going to have to play around that fighting weakness very closely, especially with stuff like Wheezing, Decidueye, who are my two essentially fighting resists on the team. If you want to count Mega Medicham as a fighting resist, go for it, just because it resists the typing, but no way in a sense wants to switch into a close combat or something along those lines. So that's something I will have to plan around. Mega Gallade is something that I'm really struggling with on the team. Yes, I have stuff like Intimidate and Masquerain that can potentially check it, but it's still not the best solution for it. So stuff like Mega Gallade with Psychic and Fighting typing just really run through me. So gonna have to really think about that, as that's one of the glaring weaknesses, as I'm really weak to fighting. I don't have many good special attackers, so in the free agency period I'm gonna have to think of potentially adding a nice special attacker to really just help the squad out. But that is my NPAA draft, guys. So if you guys enjoyed this, go ahead, leave a like down on the video. Comment changes that you may want to see on the team. I know I'm open to listening to anybody's suggestions on what may help the team in terms of gaining a special attacker, losing a fighting weakness. So just let me know down in the comment section what you guys want to see potentially changed on the team. Now, as far as uploading these go, the NPAAA is not mandatory uploads, but I will be uploading all my battles the best I can. If there's one week I may not be able to record and upload, it's not mandatory for me to upload these battles, but it's something I'm going to try my hardest to keep uploading consistently. I won't be doing team builders for these. Since they're Shodan, I may do like a quick little builder before, depending if they're live battles. If they're not live battles, then these will all be post-com. I will have a layout for them, just to make it look presentable. Don't want to give you guys a Showdown replay. If you guys want a Showdown replay, I'll just leave a link down in the description of a video, or leave it in the description of a chat we share. So that's pretty much the Oregon Duckletts team for the NPAA Minor League. I'm very excited to get this league underway. Lot going on for the channel now. We have the NPAA Minors, we have ICBA, we have Brawl for All starting up, so there's a lot going on, guys. So go ahead, subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 200. I think we're 4 away from 200 at the moment I'm recording this. Might go up by the time I am actually uploading this, guys. So with all that being said, guys, I am Johnny GB, and I'm out.